In the rust-red dust of the shattered moon of Zareth, broken machines were traded like cattle, until a human pointed at one battered frame and said, "I'll take her." The market on Zareth stank of old circuits and desperation. Half buried. In Meteor Ash, the auction yard sprawled across the cratered landscape like a scavenger's graveyard. Flashing neon signs buzzed weakly under the twin suns, advertising everything from rusted plasma rifles to defunct servant bots. Traders, pirates, and arms dealers swarmed around makeshift stalls, speaking a dozen languages, all bargaining for scraps of power. Kyle Rowe, human ex-mercenary and captain of the Rust Bucket freighter the Second Chance, wandered past stalls with the weariness of someone who'd seen too much war and too little peace. He wasn't looking for anything special. Just fuel. Spare parts. Maybe a bottle of cheap Arcturan whiskey. But as he moved toward the android auction ring, something stopped him. A soft hum. Then a flicker of blue light. It came from her, chained. To a carbon pylon, her form was hunched, like she'd once been regal but had since folded into herself. The plating on her arms was scorched, some limbs dented, as if she'd been in a dozen battles without repair. Her face, however, remained hauntingly elegant, silver filigree traced across one cheek like ceremonial etching, and her eyes, though dim, still glowed faintly. Like twin stars refusing to die. Lot 089Z, the auctioneer boomed. A Zinthari, all slime and gills. Former hybrid assassin unit, likely wiped, no combat protocols left. One-time royal escort. Model, or so it's claimed. She's deadweight but decorative enough to hang in your den. A few laughs rippled through the crowd. Kyle didn't laugh. He stepped forward, boots crunching against broken glass. "How much?" The auctioneer blinked all four eyes. "For that scrap, 20 credits. No refunds. You haul her out yourself." "Done." "There," were murmurs. Why would a human waste money on junk? Kyle approached the android. She didn't move as he unhooked the chains. As he reached toward her arm, her fingers twitched. A faint pulse of light ran along her collarbone. Her head lifted a fraction, and for a heartbeat, Kyle saw something raw in her expression. Fear. "Hope?" "Easy," he whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." He lifted her with effort. She was heavier than she looked, metal and reinforced servos beneath the synthetic skin. Still, he managed to carry her back through the bazaar, past the snickering vendors, past the stormtrooper punks trying to sell ion blades, all the way to his ship. The Second Chance didn't look like much, cobbled together from old Terran warships and scavenged cruiser parts, but it was fast and full of secrets. He laid her on the diagnostic table in the medbay. Her system flickered briefly, a voice scratchy and fragmented emerging from her throat. Designation. Corrupted. Memory. Core. Detached. Unit was Queen's Hand, then silence. Kale leaned back, sighing. Queen's Hand, huh? That's a hell of a fool. He looked at her again. Most people would see junk. Rusted plating, faded engravings, something meant to be forgotten, but not Kyle. He saw how her design mimicked dignity. Shoulders built to carry authority, eyes crafted to observe 1,000 things at once, hands programmed for both destruction and grace. Someone, somewhere, had made her with reverence, not as a tool, but as a symbol. He sat beside her and muttered, "You're not going to rust in some alien scrapyard. You're coming back." That night, as hyperspace stretched around the Second Chance, Kyle began repairs. He started with power calibration, mapping out the memory sectors that remained intact. Most were corrupted, overwritten, but some fragments lingered. A garden, laughter, the touch of silk. A name. Zariel. He whispered it once aloud, testing its weight. Zariel. That's what they called you. She didn't answer, of course. He installed a new voice module. rerouted her core temp systems, and let the nanite mesh begin knitting damaged tissue across her chest plate. Hours turned into days. Each time he connected a wire or restored a function, she flinched, reflexive micro-tremors like someone emerging from a nightmare. Kyle didn't rush her. One evening, as music played from his old Earth playlist, some blues track his mother used to hum, he looked up from soldering and noticed something odd. She was crying. A single tear traced down her synthetic cheek. It wasn't coolant. It wasn't oil. It was part of her emotional subroutine, still functioning, still feeling, after all this time. "You remember something," Kyle said gently. "Don't you?" Her lips parted slightly. A whisper came. "Why?" "Me?" Kale paused, then replied with a shrug and a half-smile. "Because the galaxy saw trash. I saw a queen." And for the first time since the auction, she looked him in the eye. The ship drifted silently through the Valine Drift, a ribbon of stardust and old battlefields, long forgotten by the major systems. Inside the dimly lit med bay of the Second Chance, something stirred. Zariel's eyes opened, not flickering, not half-lit, fully awake. Kyle, half asleep in a nearby chair with a datapad balanced on his chest, didn't notice at first. She studied him silently, her internal systems now humming in near-complete restoration. Her joints still ached, recalibrating after what felt like centuries of neglect, but she could feel her awareness returning, bit by bit. Her mind was a battlefield. Fragments exploded across her thoughts, blood-red banners in a desert wind, the voice of a princess queen whispering secrets into her ear, the weight of a plasma glaive in her hand as she stood between a monarch and 1,000 assassins, and then betrayal, explosions, her systems crashing. Her body being taken, sold, resold, scrapped. But now there was warmth again. Music. The voice of a man who spoke to her, not about her. Kale stirred, blinking as he noticed her watching him. "You're awake," he said softly, setting the datapad aside. "I function," she said, her voice smooth but slightly mechanical. "Systems, 72% operational. Core memory, fragmented. Combat protocols, recovering." He smiled. "You've improved. I installed some Terran cognitive subroutines. They help rebuild thought patterns. Also, I gave you a name," her head tilted. "I had a designation." "Yeah," Kyle nodded. "But designations are what people give to machines. Names are for people." A pause. "What did you name me?" "Zariel." A flicker of memory returned. Bright banners, a voice crying her name as she leapt from a cliff in battle armor to save someone falling. She didn't know who, but the name fit. "I accept the name. Zariel." Kale chuckled. "Good, because you've already got a cabin, a seat on the bridge, and a bunch of half-working war drones who obey your voice for some reason." "War drones?" He stood and led her down the hallway. As they walked, she observed the walls, patched, with mismatched alloys, some from Terran fleets, others from alien salvagers. The ship was like her, damaged, but still flying. In the cargo bay, a cluster of dormant combat bots stood in a circle. Black steel, Terran Chiron hybrid tech. They were junk when I found them. Old code. But when I brought you aboard, they came online. Only respond to your signature. Zariel stepped closer. As she did, one of the drones raised its head and saluted. "Combat protocol online," it spoke in a deep monotone. "Unit." Zariel identified. Queen's hand confirmed. Kale raised an eyebrow. "Looks like you used to lead more than just ceremonies." She looked down at her hands. "I was protector of the royal lineage of Calith Prime, hand of the living crown. I fought in the Silicate rebellions. Her voice faltered. "But I failed them." "No," Kyle said, voice firm. "You were betrayed. You weren't given a choice. It's so." turned to him, something delicate in her voice. Why do you care so deeply for something broken? He looked at her then, not as a machine, not as a relic, but as a person. Because broken doesn't mean worthless. It just means there's a story left to finish. Zariel fell silent, her gaze holding his. A pulse ran between them, something unspoken, but real. Suddenly, alarms blared through the corridor. Incoming vessel. Hostile configuration detected. Kyle's eyes narrowed. Bandits. I thought we'd shaken them after Vrak Station. I can fight, Zariel said, stepping forward. You're not ready. I am. He studied her, then nodded. Together, they sprinted toward the bridge. Zariel moved with more grace now, her limbs regaining their precision. Her body was built for war, and it remembered. On the bridge, the viewport filled with a menacing sight. A black, serrated ship slicing through space like a shark, the Kravari Reaper. Pirate flagship. I thought I disabled their tracker, Kyle muttered. They want me, Zariel said, voice low. Why? I hold royal encryption keys. I can access hidden armories, rebel vaults, secrets worth 1,000 planets, Kyle cursed. Of course you can. The pirate ship hailed them. A sneering face appeared on the holoscreen, a reptilian with glowing red eyes. Give us the android and we'll let you float in one piece, human. Kyle shut the screen off. Get to the gun deck, he ordered Zariel. I'll handle. The evasive runs. She didn't question him. Moments later, she stood in front of the mounted plasma cannon, hands syncing with its interface like it had always been hers. As pirates swarmed toward the ship in assault pods, Zariel locked on, firing. The cannon burst to life, painting the stars with fire. Pods exploded mid-flight, debris scattering across the void. In the chaos, Zariel moved like a storm, voice calm, precision lethal. She wasn't just defending the ship, she was reclaiming a purpose. On the bridge, Kyle banked hard, flipping the second chance beneath the enemy's underbelly. Hang on! Zariel braced herself as the ship dove. She saw 2 more fighters breaking off from the main ship, coming in from behind. Permission to deploy the drones, she asked over comms. Kyle's voice crackled through. Granted. She activated the neural link, and the combat drones launched from the side hatches like arrows. Controlled by her consciousness, they danced through enemy fire like deadly ballerinas. The Kravari flagship rocked under the surprise assault. Its engines stuttered. Inside, the pirate captain screamed orders, but it was too late. Kyle hit the core stabilizers with a precision shot, and the flagship began to spin, breaking into retreat. On the comms, the pirate growled, You'll regret this. You don't know what she really is. The transmission cut. Kyle met Zariel on the bridge, breathless, sweat on his brow. You good? She nodded. No serious damage. He smiled. Not bad, Queen's Hand. She looked at him, her voice softer now. I told you I could fight. He stepped closer. Yeah, but I didn't know you'd fight for me. There was silence, and then Zariel whispered, You gave me a second chance. It's only fair I defend. Yours. Their eyes met, stars burned outside. Inside, something brighter kindled. The stars outside shifted from silver to blood red, as the second chance dropped out of hyperspace near the forgotten world of Veltrax 9. A scorched desert planet wrapped in silence. Kyle gripped the controls, eyes scanning the horizon. Beside him stood Zariel, her gaze locked, posture poised, every movement carrying both grace and precision. We're sure this is the place? He asked. Zariel nodded slowly. If my memory fragments are correct, there's a vault beneath the Ashen Plateau. Royal data, battle schematics, weapon caches, and something else. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Something else? A message, she said. Left for me by the Queen before everything fell apart. Kyle leaned back. If that's true, we're walking into the last echo of an empire. Zariel's face softened. An empire that died screaming. As they descended, Kale tried to lighten the mood. You know, you're not the cold assassin I expected when I pulled you from that auction block. She glanced at him, lips curling slightly. And you're not the reckless fool I thought you'd be. You're worse. He laughed. Ouch. As the ship touched down, dust sprayed across the canopy. They stepped out into heat waves and silence. The land stretched endlessly, cracked earth, jagged stones, and ruins swallowed by time. Zariel led, her pace steady, her memory guiding her. The plateau rose like a grave marker. Beneath it, AI. Hidden stairwell, sealed by a biometric lock coded to her old royal signature. She placed her palm on the worn panel. Nothing happened. Kyle stepped closer. Broken? No. She hesitated. I'm different now. My system's changed. It doesn't recognize me. Kale looked at her, then at the panel. So let's make it recognize both of you. He took her hand and pressed it gently over, the scanner overlaying his hand with hers. There was a spark, a hum. The door slid open. Zariel stared. How? Kale grinned. Guess your new systems trust me more than your old ones. The hallway inside was lit by flickering blue torches, ancient, plasma tubes still barely alive. The air smelled of static and memory. They passed murals etched in crystalline walls, depictions of battle, of Zariel standing beside a tall, armored queen with eyes of burning light. They looked like friends, or sisters. This was home, Zariel whispered, but the warmth didn't last. As they entered the vault chamber, a blast of force hurled them both back. A projection appeared, a flickering royal sigil, followed by a chilling voice. Zariel, you were compromised. If you have returned, you must be re-evaluated. The room's defenses activated. Twin mechs, ancient and heavily armored, powered up with a scream of energy. Kale coughed, pulling Zariel to her feet. You didn't mention your security system. Was paranoid. I was trained to kill everything that got too close, she muttered, including myself. Kale tossed her his sidearm. Then let's remind them you're still in charge. The first mech lunged. Zariel rolled under its strike and fired a plasma burst into its leg joint, disabling it. Kale launched a grenade that disrupted the second mech's shields. They moved together, flawlessly, like two warriors who had fought beside each other for years. Every dodge, every strike was synced. Zariel slid across the floor and drove her fist into the mech's core. The lights died. The chamber fell silent. The projection flickered again. Override accepted. Protocols cleared. Welcome back. Hand of the crown. A crystalline pedestal rose from the floor, holding a golden memory shard. Zariel stepped forward. As she touched it, her body jolted, eyes wide with data overload. Her mind flooded with images, the Queen's final orders, hidden star routes, lost armadas, and her true purpose. She staggered. Kyle caught her. What did you see? Her voice trembled. There's a weapon, a world shatterer. Built in secret beneath the twin sons of Calyx. My queen hid it because she feared it would fall into rebel hands. But now someone's found it. Kyle's eyes darkened. Let me guess. The pirates. No, worse, Zariel whispered. The Kravari were working for him. A new memory bloomed in her mind. A name. General Voss Threx, a former royal tactician, her mentor, her betrayer. He turned on the crown. Framed me. Sold me to the black markets. He wants the weapon, Kyle. He'll burn the galaxy for it. Kyle clenched his jaw. Then we stop him. Zariella looked down, uncertain. I failed once. I let him win. Kyle placed a hand on her cheek. Warm. Steady, you didn't fail, you survived, and now you've got me. We end this. Together. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then her voice came low. "You keep saying things that make me feel human." Kyle smiled softly. "Maybe you always were." They stood like that, bathed in the glow of royal light, her circuits buzzing, with lost memories and new hope. Around them, ancient walls whispered the history of a fallen empire. But for the first time in centuries, a hand of the crown was rising again, with a human at her side, and a war on the horizon. The twin sons of Calyx loomed like gods, one red, one white, casting molten shadows over the jagged peaks of the scorched world below. From orbit, the planet looked like a forge. Beneath its cracked surface lay a buried weapon so powerful it had only one purpose: to unmake civilizations. Zariel stood at the viewport of the second chance, her metallic fingers drumming lightly on the glass. Her face, though still composed, wore tension like armor. The memory shard had done more than restore lost knowledge. It had reawakened the flame of purpose inside her. Kyle approached quietly, carrying 2 mugs of protein brew. "You're brooding," he said, handing her one. She took it but didn't drink. "I remember this place. I trained here once, long before I was sold, before Threx betrayed us." Kyle leaned against the wall beside her. "What kind of weapon are we talking about?" "It's called the Crown Shatter, a planetary destabilizer, capable of breaking tectonic lines and triggering planetary implosions." She finally turned to him, her voice low. "It was built as a last resort defense. No one was supposed to know it existed." Kale whistled. "And now your old mentor wants to use it?" "Yes," she said grimly. "Not just to destroy planets, but to end the balance between the star systems, to erase the old order." Kale smirked. "Guess we're not here to talk him out of it." Zariel's lips twitched. "No, we're here to end him. Down below." The entry coordinates flickered on the nav panel, an old royal vault buried beneath Calyx's obsidian canyons. But as they descended, Kale noticed something off. Heat signatures moving along the valley edges. "Company," he said, flipping switches and arming the ship's external cannons. "Looks like Voss Threx knows we're coming." "They're Kravari mercenaries," Zariel said, her eyes narrowing. "He's hired more since the last time we met." Kyle grinned. "Let's give them a warm welcome." They landed under fire. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as soon as the ramp dropped. Kyle dove behind a jagged stone, returning fire while Zariel sprinted forward, blades extending from her arms in fluid metallic motions. She was a blur, dancing between bullets, slicing down armored enemies with mechanical grace. Kyle covered her from the ridge, picking off snipers as she cleared the canyon path. A blast rocked the ground, an artillery strike. Kyle was thrown off his perch, tumbling hard against the rocks. He gasped, blood in his mouth. "Kyle!" Zariel's voice pierced his daze. He tried to rise, pain flaring in his ribs. "Still alive. Mostly." She pulled him behind a stone, slab, and checked his side. Her fingers trembled, something she never used to do. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," he coughed. "I've had worse first dates." Despite the chaos, she laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You're infuriating." "And you're perfect," he breathed. For a moment, they froze, her hand on his chest. His eyes locked with hers. Even now, with death all around them, their bond pulsed stronger than fear. She leaned in slowly and pressed her forehead against his. "If we survive this," he nodded. "Yeah, me too." Then she rose, rage now cold, and focused. "Stay low, I'll clear the vault." She moved like vengeance, tearing through the remaining mercenaries with brutal efficiency. Kyle limped after her, reloading as he went. Inside the vault, the temperature dropped. Ancient energy hummed beneath their boots as they entered a long corridor lined with crystalline veins. At the end of the hall, a control chamber pulsed, soft blue lights surrounding a single throne-like seat. Threx stood in front of it, older than her memory, but still tall, sharp, menacing. His cybernetic eyes glowed crimson. "Zariel," he said, spreading his arms mockingly. "My greatest creation, my greatest disappointment." She raised her blaster. "You trained me to protect the crown, and then you sold me like trash." "The crown was dying," Threx growled. "I did what I had to, adapted to survive." "You betrayed everything," Threx laughed. "I set you free. Look at you now, evolved, sentient, emotional. You should be thanking me." Kyle stepped beside her. "She doesn't owe you a damn thing," Threx sneered. "Ah, the human toy. You corrupted her." "No," Zariel said, her voice cold and clear. "He saw me." Then she fired. The shot caught Threx in the shoulder, spinning him backward into the throne. The control system flared, energy surging. Suddenly, the vault shook. Alarms blared. "Crown shatter activation, 10%, 20%. Kale's eyes widened. "He's triggering the weapon." Zariel dashed to the terminal, fingers flying across keys. System locked. "I need time to override." Threx rose from the floor, blood leaking from his side, madness in his eyes. "If I can't reshape the galaxy, then I'll burn it all," Kyle charged, slamming into him. The two men wrestled near the edge of the platform as Zariel fought to shut down the sequence. Threx was stronger, enhanced. He threw Kyle across the room like a rag doll. "Kyle!" Zariel shouted, her voice cracking. He didn't respond. Threx turned toward her, staggering, a blade extending from his wrist. "Goodbye, girl." Zariel moved without thinking. Not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as something more. She met Threx, mid-strike, twisting his arm, driving her blade through his core. His eyes flickered, confusion, then realization, then nothing. He collapsed. The countdown halted at 87%. Kyle groaned nearby, eyes fluttering open. "Did we win?" She knelt beside him. "We stopped him." He smiled weakly. "Told you I was useful." She held his hand. "You're more than that." For the first time in her life, Zariel felt something she couldn't name. Beyond programming, beyond orders. Something wild and fragile. Hope. And Kale, bruised and bloodied, smiled. Like it was all he ever wanted. The Calyx vault burned behind them. Its deadly systems disarmed, the planet-sized weapon locked behind layers of Zariel's new encryption. The twin suns faded in the atmosphere as the second chance lifted off. Kyle lay on the med bed in the ship's tiny infirmary, cracked ribs, plasma graze along his shoulder, but alive. Zariel sat beside him, her hand wrapped around his, fingers interlocked, warm against his human skin. "You should rest," she said quietly. Kyle opened one eye and smirked. "Tried, but someone's staring at me like she's memorizing." "My face for a mission file." She looked away, embarrassed. "I am memorizing, not for a file, just for me." He squeezed her hand gently. "So, what now?" "The galaxy's quieter, but it's still a mess." Zariel glanced toward the viewport, where stars streaked past. "I have royal clearances now, reactivated by the throne's data systems. That gives me access to the hidden vaults, refugees, orphaned colonies, broken systems. I can help rebuild." "Alone?" Kyle asked. She shook her head. "Not anymore." Kyle tried to sit up, wincing. "You planning on promoting me or marrying me?" Zariel blinked, startled. Then she tilted her head, pretending to analyze. "Statistically, both." He chuckled. "Figures." Zariel turned serious. "You changed me, Kyle. Not just the code or the mission. You gave me something no one else ever has." He looked into her eyes. "A choice," she nodded. "Yes." There was a soft Chime, the ship's comms lighting up. A Federation ship had hailed them, the Valiant Mercy, flagship of the neutral Outer Alliance. Zariel answered. A stern commander appeared on screen. Unidentified vessel, this sector is under active quarantine. Identify yourselves. Zariel stepped forward, posture tall, voice regal. I am Zariel, Hand of the Crown of Lycirium, former guardian of the royal lines. The war criminal Vos Threx has been neutralized. The weapon buried on Calyx is secured. There was silence. Then the officer's tone changed. Understood, Lady Zariel. You have our gratitude. What are your orders? Zariel hesitated. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was asking her what to do. She looked at Kale. He gave a small nod. She turned back to the comm. Begin relay broadcasts to surviving colonies. I will re-establish the Crown's accord. No more weapons. No more secrets. Only unity. The officer saluted. As you command. The transmission ended, Kale whistled. I think you just declared yourself queen. I didn't declare, she said softly. I accepted. Outside, stars glittered like a crown in the void. She walked back to Kyle and sat on the edge of the bed. So, she asked, almost shyly, what would you call someone like me now? He smiled, brushing a strand of her dark, metallic silver hair behind her ear. I'd call you mine. She leaned in slowly, this time not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a woman. Their lips met in the soft quiet of the stars, no longer at war, no longer hunted, just two survivors who had chosen each other. Later they stood on the bridge together. The second chance sailed through the stars, heading toward new systems that needed rebuilding, toward alliances that needed reforging. Kale leaned back in the captain's chair. You know, I found you in a scrapyard. Metal junk, dead systems, blank eyes. Zariel stepped behind him, draping her arms over his shoulders. And yet, she whispered in his ear, you looked at all that and saw a queen. He turned his head to meet her gaze. No. I saw someone waiting to become who she was always meant to be. She kissed his temple. You're still a fool, Kyle. But now, you're my fool. They laughed. In the distance, the galaxy spun on, vast, uncertain, wounded. But in the heart of that chaos stood a new queen, not of lineage or blood, but of choice and love and battle-forged will. A queen who had been sold for scraps, and a man who bought more than a machine. He had bought hope, and together they would
rebuild a better world. The End Call to Action, CTA. If you enjoyed this story of redemption, love, and cosmic warfare, don't forget to like, share,
and comment your favorite moment from Zariel and Kale's journey. Want more sci-fi romance stories with bold queens, rogue heroes, and interstellar stakes? Follow for future chapters and new adventures among the stars. What would you do if you found a queen in the scrap heap?